Richard Rodgers with a walk-off touchdown. Total disbelief at Ford Field.
He may go all the way to the 20 down the right side, and it's Randall Cobb to the 5, to the end zone, to the touchdown. Oh my goodness.
Welcome, everyone, to the Green and Golden Boys, a Packers podcast, a podcast for fans who are ready for a border battle and to hopefully shut those Vikings fans up, at least for a couple months. I am Marcus, and with me is always is Charles. Charles, how are you?
I'm great. Do you really think we will shut Vikings fans up no matter what happens on Sunday?
No, I think unless every single one of them's mouth was sewn shut, we wouldn't be able to shut them up. So, you know, it's a wishful thinking, but it's a fun rivalry. It's definitely been the best rivalry in the NFC North for the last probably, 8 years or so, I'd say. But, they love to talk, and especially this time of year when we haven't seen a single game yet, they're always high on their expectations. But I don't know, this year may be a little bit different for them. They've seemed to have some strong pieces in place. The new coach, new scheme, new defense, picked up a couple pieces on the defensive side, including ex-Packer Zadarius Smith. But yeah, a game that I won't say it's a must-win. Week one, I don't know if you can say week one is ever a must-win, but certainly a big game. Could have some potential implications down the road. We will see. But before we kind of get into our predictions and our analysis, a couple things I wanted to talk about on the injury side. Allen Lazard did not participate in practice again today, Friday, so he is listed as doubtful for Sunday. I think they're probably going to err on the side of caution and just leave him out. What do you think?
Yeah, I think if he's supposed to be our number one receiver, and it sounds like it's kind of an injury that you could probably aggravate again. I say you err on the side of caution. To your point, it's week one. It's not necessarily a must-win game. It's a huge game. Love to have everyone. But yeah, I think Packers traditionally err on the side of caution. So I doubt we see him, seeing that his designation is already doubtful.
Yeah, and the other two, big ones for this weekend are David Bakhtiari and Elton Jenkins. They're both listed as questionable for Sunday. They were they were limited participants in practice today and pretty much all week. That might just be a coin flip. I honestly don't know if we're going to see one, see both. They could both be game time decisions. What do you think? Are you expecting to see either or one of these guys on Sunday?
Well, I don't know who it's going to be, but I mean, just the odds tell me we're going to see somebody. If you had your choice between Christian Watson, Big Bob Tunyon, Jenkins, Bakhtiari, and Lazard, if you could pick two of them to have this game against the Vikings, who would you want? And regardless of long-term effects, like who do you want back of those this Sunday?
I would say probably Bakhtiari and Allen Lazard, if I could pick two.
Yeah, I think that's Bakhtiari is almost like a no-brainer. Left tackle, protect Rodgers against this pretty strong defensive front with the Vikings, and then I would say either Lazard or Big Bob Tunyon, just to give us another familiar target, and Lazard being the supposed number one. I think, if we could somehow get those two guys back, that'd be great. Unfortunately, I think those are two of the most likely not to play here on Sunday.
Yeah, unfortunately, but we will see. I'm not going to predict either one. I think at this point, I'm just going to say that if we get any of those guys starting on Sunday, it'll be kind of a happy surprise. So,
do you think we see Christian Watson? And I guess what's the over under on targets for him? You think if he plays, do you think we see 2, 3, 4 throws his way, or much less or much more?
If Christian Watson plays, I don't think we see a ton of targets. I would say maybe 3. Especially since he didn't play at all during the preseason. I think he's likely going to be more of a chess piece in this matchup. Maybe they'll have him run a couple of post routes or just kind of streak up the sideline to try to separate from the corner or the safety and just kind of open up the middle of the field. I don't think he's going to get a ton of work this week, though.
100%. Yeah, I would love, I hope we take a shot or two down the field to him, right? But nothing that requires him making any kind of mental decision, right? If it's about him reading anything, nothing like that, because one pick this game, one anything this game is going to be a total momentum changer, and that place will be rocking in Minnesota, mind you. And I don't want to have him to be shell-shocked, right? If anything else, like I don't want him to be down on himself for making a bad decision. So I agree, 1 or 2 targets, but hopefully we see him taking the top off the defense.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's probably good. And again, yeah, we don't want him to move too far, too fast, mentally or physically. But again, this is something I had jotted down that I thought was pretty funny. I don't know how many of the Aaron Rodgers or team interviews you watch on the Packers YouTube channel, but Aaron Rodgers was asked about the Vikings the other day, and I'm going to quote him here because I thought it was funny and pretty much true. But he said regarding the Vikings, he says their fan base feels like it's this. Excuse me, I'm going to start over. Their fan base feels like it's this year to win the North. Hasn't really been the case during my time for the most part. So he said it with a kind of a cracked smile. He's not wrong. I mean, Aaron Rodgers has pretty much owned the NFC North since he's been a starter. Do you feel like he's goading them a little bit, or just kind of being honest? What do you feel like?
Yeah, do you think he's tempting his fate a bit there? And we're karma people. Is that just testing that a little bit? Yeah, I think it's fun. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't think he says anything. He just seems so calculated, right, with everything that he says. So this is probably a little bit of his fun side. He's not wrong. So, you and I had the conversation yesterday when you watched the opening game between the Bills and Rams. Vikings football fans, and we live here, so we pick on Vikings fans more. But Vikings fans, football fans, just seem to have so much hope, because they see teams like the Bengals win 4 games and then go to the Super Bowl the next game, the next year, and there's just not usually much logic behind that hope. And with the Vikings having so many question marks and so much new, I think that allows them to have higher hopes than usual, which might be why we're getting a little bit more, talk back from our Vikings friends. But I think that also leads to a lot more chance of a bigger drought, right? A bigger fall, if you will. This experiment might not work with I forget the coach's name. It might not be a fit with him and Kirk Cousins. I don't expect that to be the case, but I think we're seeing a lot of hope from Vikings fans, and I'm just very much hoping that we win this game. Because frankly, this is half one of the Vikings Super Bowl. Half two comes January 1st when we play again, and that's typically all Vikings fans watch these games for, is just to see, can we beat the Packers? If they can, they just won their Super Bowl, and if they lost, they just lost their Super Bowl. So it's a fun time, fun game.
I think those expectations are changing for them, though. I think it's not going to be good enough for them moving forward just to beat the Packers, especially with Rodgers' career coming to an end. They may have the best quarterback in the NFC North coming up in a year or two. We don't really know, but I think we're starting to see that change a little bit. Their appetite for winning is growing a little bit, and I think beating the Packers is certainly step one, and they always want to do that. But I also think that it's going to be, I think for them it's going to be more than just beating the Packers. So obviously they want to do that regardless. But let's talk a little bit about this Vikings offense. We know a lot about the players, the personnel, but they're going to be playing a new offense, a new scheme under Kevin O'Connell. Obviously, everybody knows that he's from the Sean McVay tree, or not the Sean McVay tree, but the Shanahan tree. He coached with Sean McVay, so we're expecting to see a little bit of that. Packers kind of run a version of this offense with Matt LaFleur, so maybe that's an advantage for the Packers. Not having any looks at this offense yet, but they have some really good players. I mean, you could say what you want about Kirk Cousins, but he is a really good quarterback. Top
Especially
8, I would
with
say.
Time.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the thing. When you give him time, he can deliver pretty much any ball you want, and he's pretty accurate. He's really efficient. I expect him to have a pretty good year again. I don't think he's usually the difference maker, but the difference maker, in my opinion, is probably going to be their running back tandem. I mean, Dalvin Cook, when he's healthy, is one of the best in the game. super dynamic, and we've seen him single-handedly destroy the Packers the last couple of years. So
he's a Packers killer.
He really is. And then, they have a second running back, Alexander Madison, who's also really good and can be pretty dynamic. So those two
could be a starter on a lot of NFL teams.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like the Jones-Dillon duo, right? He's a very, very good running back, and when Dalvin went down, he really held his own.
Yeah, he did for sure. I mean, not only in the running game, but also in the receiving game. I think he had almost 300 yards receiving last year after he had to kind of pick up the reins for Dalvin Cook. But again, a strong tandem, and those two I think are going to be tough, a tough matchup, and I think we got to keep an eye on them. Those are two players that I really think we need to stop, to be successful. Their wide receiver core is also pretty good. I mean, they have they have one of the best in the league in Justin Jefferson. They have essentially probably one of the best, if not the best, number 2 in Adam Thielen in the league. There's kind of a drop after that, but certainly a better wide receiver core than what we've seen from this Packers team so far. Obviously, we've got some rookies we have to keep an eye on, and then a new addition in Sammy Watkins. But of those players, I mean, who do you think we have to contain in order to win this game?
All of them. I mean, Justin Jefferson, I think, was against Stokes last year and had 8 catches for 169 yards. I mean, that's so unacceptable.
Ridiculous, yep.
And I just, now, Alexander was out at that time, but that's something that we have to not only, slow down, but almost cut in half. So I just don't know if I see that happening. My question to you is, do you think that we're going to have Jair Alexander shadow Justin, seeing that Stokes couldn't stop him at all last year? Or do you think maybe that we double up Justin and maybe put Jair on Thielen? Because back to what I said about Dalvin Cook being a Packer killer, Justin, Thielen, and Cooks have all been Packer killers, and it's kind of like pick your poison, I feel like, with this team.
Yeah, and I think that's the problem when you double team anybody is okay, you double team Justin Jefferson, that leaves maybe somebody open in the flat, a tight end or a running back. And again, yeah, it is kind of a pick your poison. I think they're going to do their best to have. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I anticipate them trying to shadow Justin Jefferson with Jair Alexander, especially when he's on his side of the field. But I
tend to agree, and then hopefully get after Kurt with the defensive front, right? So that don't allow Justin to have so much time out there. But we're not doing the prediction segment right now, but Justin Jefferson's over/under on receiving yards is 82.5 yards. I think 82 yards would be a bad game from him at this point, based on what we've seen him do. So I just think that, like, if I'm a betting man, I'm all over the over, and I just think it's going to be hard for us to keep him to 100 yards, and that scares me.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's a guy that he's going to get 100 no matter what you do. But if you can limit him to 100 yards and no touchdowns, maybe that's a win for any defense. So yeah, I anticipate that being a great matchup to watch. Let's talk a little bit about their defense. We mentioned earlier too, Zadarius Smith is now a Minnesota Viking. Had some animosity and some choice words for the Packers front office. He felt like he was mistreated, last year during his back injury and his recovery. Danielle Hunter has obviously been a guy that's been trouble for the Packers offensive line over the years. This is a duo that I'm a little bit concerned about. I think my key to success for this offense is really just protecting Aaron Rodgers. So if they can give him enough time, hopefully he gets the ball out quickly, but if they can give him enough time and keep Smith and Hunter at bay, I think we can win this one.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think worst case scenario is having a game somewhat resemble what it looked like week 1 last year. I think we need to have the most scripted, easy, quick developing plays to get all of these guys on our offense